People are yelling at Luka Doncic. I want to yell at Luka Doncic. I'm going to do that right now. And we're going to change some of the narratives about the Boston Celtics on the verge of a championship right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster brand, it's holiday season, drop Drew in the mix. And 3 from KP, no we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Deuce, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in locked on NASA. Karalis on the breakdown, clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and J's, how we started, raising banners, how we finish. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Yes, Rain and Jay's how we started, raising banners how we finished. That's going to be so true in very short order. Thank you for joining the show. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you being here Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever day we need to keep podcasting here through the completion of the NBA Finals, which should happen soon. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. I'm very clearly in a good mood because the Celtics are on the verge of a championship. And we're going to be talking about that. We're going to yell at Luka Doncic. We're going to do all that stuff. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA to use that code LockedOnNBA, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm John Karalis, by the way. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Lots of new Celtics fans here. So I used to play a long time ago. Now I'm a beat writer. I'm covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal and a whole lot more, plus projects that are coming and hopefully can be announced soon. So make sure you're here. I'll announce them right here. But right now, I got to announce Tom Westerholm.
Hey.
What's up, Tom Westerholm?
What up?
Tom Westerholm. Not much. I don't know if you've heard, Tom. The Boston Celtics are up 3-0 in the NBA Finals.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Funny. Kind of funny how that. I figured somebody would have been talking about this by now, but
I thought I would have heard about it, but I guess this is what happens when you get out of the game. You know, you don't hear as much.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's kind of been down low in Boston. No one's really talking about it, but that's what we're here for, to talk about all these things. Brian Windhorst.
That Luka guy must stink if the Celtics
He's
are 3-0, huh?
terrible. He's garbage.
Oof.
Well, you know what? He's the reason why the Mavs are in this position.
Yeah.
Look, I was saying it from before, and this is all part of the changing narratives thing. And this is, not going to lie, a whole lot of victory lap happening in this podcast. Why did we say that attack Luka? Because he's the key. You don't just say attack the other team's superstar, but when the very obvious, so obvious that even I can come up with it, and we could just, come up with it, that when that's the plan of attack, that guy needs to fix a whole lot about his game. He is special when it comes to his offense, but there's two things that he has to fix. Number one, some level of his defense. Two, well, actually, three things. This is going to quickly turn into the Monty Python Spanish Inquisition sketch. One key, no, two keys, three keys to Luka Doncic. He needs to fix his attitude, and he needs to fix his conditioning. And all of those things came together, and the Celtics just destroyed it. And Brian Windhorst destroyed Luka Doncic, and it went viral and all of that stuff. And Windhorst wasn't lying. He might have been it might have been strongly worded, but he wasn't lying. There was a lot of truth telling there. And look, this is going to be, I'm sure, a little Locked On Mavericks conversation, but this is a hell of a learning experience for Luka Doncic, but also good on the Celtics for being like, yeah, we're going to teach this kid a lesson. And maybe, maybe he learns from it and becomes better and becomes an MVP and wins a championship down the road. Wouldn't be surprised by that. He's that good. But man, the Celtics saw him. Joe Mazzulla saw him, and let fold in some of this narrative changing. What an amazing coach this guy is. What an amazing coaching staff this staff is. They saw Luka and they were like, oh yeah, baby. Let's feed all the Luka minutes to us because we want it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to start real quick. Little tip of the cap. Brian Windhorst is really good. He's a really good reporter, and like it's not like a lot of times reporters it's hard to call out players who you might and probably are covering to some extent.
We'll be walking past in the hallway.
Like you need to have these connections with, like, if you're like the real reporters will do that, and that's respect. I've always Windhorst, and here's the thing. I think he's dead accurate. I think more than anything, the attitude isn't even the thing that has killed Dončić in this series. I don't think. I mean, it's like, sure, that, a couple of plays here and there, he complained too much to the referees. The Celtics got back. A couple of those plays, the Celtics didn't even capitalize on last night. I think the biggest thing is, honestly, the conditioning, because the defense, it rolls into the conditioning, right? He would be probably a little bit better at defense if he could do, or at if he could do both sides of the ball, which comes with conditioning. And he would be a little bit better at defense if he wasn't so just exhausted from constantly having to do a lot of stuff. And some of that is the Mavericks, but I really do think that, like, that's where it all stems from. And that mentality that you kind of create to get in good condition, that's a very similar mentality to the mentality that you have to have on the defensive end, right? Like, to get, to take things really seriously and to get in good shape and to do all that kind of stuff. Like, defense is about that. Defense is about taking things seriously and being like, okay, taking some pride in, like, okay, I'm going to try to stop this guy. And, like, if I get cooked, I get cooked, but I'm going to try to be in front of him. And if I am not in front of him anymore, I'm going to try as hard as I can to get back in front of him. Or I'm going to kind of have the scheme down well enough that I'm going to be in the next right place if I do get beat, to help somebody else who is helping me. And it's all this stuff. Like, that requires a ton of concentration and a ton of energy. And a lot of that stuff starts with getting in better shape. So, I think that's, like, kind of the long and the short of it in this series. Honestly, when we were talking before the series, I wasn't necessarily convinced that the Celtics were going to go at Luka. I thought they were going to go at Kyrie, because they've beaten teams by going at Kyrie in the past. I thought they were going to go at Eric Lively and PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. Like, I thought there were targets all over the floor. That's one of the reasons when we, talked, that I was like, I feel like the Celtics are in a good position here. And it turned out all those targets, that wasn't even the guy they were going to go at. The guy they were going to go at was the superstar who can't keep anybody in front of him. So, I think it's all tied together, but I think it really does start. Like, if there was one thing he was going to fix this offseason, I think if he fixed his conditioning, that could really help with some of the other stuff.
You know who does all of that stuff? You know who has done all of that stuff? Jayson Tatum.
Yep.
Jaylen Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Al Horford.
Yeah.
Drew Holiday.
Yep.
Like, all of the Celtics, just the dedication. Like, Jayson Tatum came into this league super skinny. Now he is a 3D printed just blueprint for a basketball player. 6'9", big, broad-shouldered, just everything. Like, if you could just put into AI, build me the perfect basketball player, it would spit out a replica of Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown with just, I was talking to somebody. Jaylen walked past us on the way out of practice a couple days ago, and I forget who I was talking to, but it's like, I forget, you don't realize how big Jaylen is. Jaylen's like broad-shouldered, big, muscular dude, clearly puts in a ton of effort. Here are the Boston Celtics, 3-0 in the finals, going up against Luka and Kyrie. And there's Luka huffing and puffing down the stretch. Yeah, his knees hurt. Sure. I don't care. Like, but if he was 100%, maybe these games would be closer, but that wouldn't change much about his defense. It wouldn't change much about what the Celtics game plan was. That was always going to be the case. And he was looking better against Minnesota. I remember Mavs fans go into the comments leading up to this in our YouTube page. Mavs fans were like, well, he was hurt against like OKC. He was hurt, but now he's fine. And yeah, well, the Celtics made him work hard and now he's hurt again. Right. So the contrast in Luka, what he needs to do to become get to that next level, and Jayson Tatum. And I'm going to wrap this up by saying I've made a switch in what I have been saying about Jayson Tatum and Luka Doncic. And this finals has changed everything. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. But you are just playing against the picks, the projections. You pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You pick 2 to 6 players' stats projections, and it only takes as little as 60 seconds, and you can turn $10 into $1,000. So go check it out. PrizePicks.com. Use that promo code LOCKEDONNBA. You're going to get a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks.com. Promo code is LOCKEDONNBA. You get a first deposit match up to $100. Then you go and you check out the projections. You get Jayson Tatum for more or less than 10 rebounds. And I think generally speaking, more is pretty good, a pretty good bet. Jaylen Brown, more or less than 25 points. I would say probably less because of the way they're moving the ball. You can and that's how it goes. That's how it works. You pick those and you can do it with just about any sport, right? You can go to the WNBA, you can go to baseball, you can go to hockey. The NHL finals the Stanley Cup finals are going on, soccer, all of that stuff. It's there at prizepicks.com. Again, just go there, sign up, prizepicks.com, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports today. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube. It's also on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. That's free. So go check it out. All the major shows, all the big shows, this show on repeat throughout the day. So put it on, leave it on. You get all the big time sports talk, real sports talk with none of the crap in between. All right, Tom. I have for years now held Luka and Tatum in direct comparison to one another. And I've always said, and I've said it on this podcast, Tatum is the guy that a parent puts him in front of the piano at age 4 and says, you're playing piano. And he just starts learning and playing. And he goes to Juilliard, he goes to Berklee School of Music, goes to wherever and learns and becomes great, becomes this elite concert pianist that packs whatever stadiums, whatever, right? Luka, I've always seen as the kid, the 4-year-old who just walks up to a piano and just starts playing things by ear. And you're like, whoa, this kid's actually playing a song, and has always just been, yeah, I'm great at this and can freelance, whatever kind of style of music you want. And I've always seen that as like, that's such a special talent and he's so great. But I think this season and these finals, in direct comparison to one another, Tatum has taken that step past, like the work that Tatum has put in has moved him past Luka, because, and that's why I set up the whole first segment the way I did, because Luka is just relying on that freelancing. He still has not like taken the craft seriously enough to be that much better. He's still one of the best, but it's very clear from this season that Jayson has even though his shooting throughout the course of the playoffs has been a struggle, he's been playing so well, both ends of the floor, reading the game so well, being part of an elite defense, executing elite coaching plans, seeing the floor, reading the floor, making the right plays. He is making his teams better. And there's a reason why he consistently is the highest or second highest plus minus guy on the team. And one of the narratives that this championship is going to bust is all the crap that people have been saying about Jayson. And I think it's time for people to accept, like, he is taking that next step. Like, even if the numbers aren't at the, 32 points, whatever, I think next season people are going to start to appreciate the full game that Jayson Tatum brings. And when we get to MVP conversations, I think that full breadth of what Tatum is doing and how he's grown his game is going to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's all reasonable. I think the other thing that's really important to note about the difference between Luka and Tatum is kind of like we talked about in the first segment, is like the attitude that Tatum brings to the game, especially this season, has just been so picture perfect for what you would hope. We've talked about this before, but it's just so, it just sets such a good example, for like him and Jaylen both, really, for like the rest of the team, for the kind of just like, hey, we're talking about guys who are in their mid-20s, who are like just really at the very start of their prime, who are already clicking into place. Hey, I have to sacrifice if I want to win basketball games. And if I win basketball games, greatness comes from that. Greatness doesn't just come from scoring 30 points and, having like a 40, 10 and 10 triple double, whatever it is. Like, that's not, it really comes from winning, because you can go your whole career and triple double your way every single time. You can score, you can average, 35 points a game every year. But if you don't win, people are going to, the narrative around you just isn't going to be as positive as if you've won championships,
right?
As if you've made those sacrifices to win. We know Jayson Tatum can average 30 points a game because he's done it. What we weren't sure of is like, hey, can this whole team, like, can he be a part of a championship team? Like this, right? This team has been so just, they just play the game the right way in such a pronounced way. And that starts with your stars. That starts with the guy who, has made multiple all NBA first teams. That starts with the guy who is the face of your franchise. And that's Jayson Tatum. And I think when you compare that to, like, I'm not around the Mavericks, obviously, like I don't know. But what you hear about Luka Doncic is kind of the opposite of that. You don't necessarily hear that, like, there's this like any kind of sacrificial anything there, right? And especially when you listen to what Windhorst was saying yesterday. I mean, the Mavericks like begging him to, take it easy on the officials, and him just kind of ignoring that. Like, it's like, I think if Tatum has been so coachable, so malleable, and I think those things just kind of have turned him into such a winning player. Like, like we're talking about these like things in such narrative terms and in like not concrete ways when you talk about like, oh, he's like a winner, but like literally he is.
Yeah,
his team is 79-20 this season. They've lost 2 games in the playoffs. Like, that's bonkers. And again, that all starts with the guy who has taken a step back in his mid-20s at the start of his prime to win those games, who said, yep, hey, listen, I can be a distributor when I need to be a distributor. I'm cool with that as long as we're winning games. That's so impressive, man.
He's been winning his whole career.
Yeah.
He's been in the conference finals, 4 times? He's been to the NBA finals twice.
5 times, I believe. That
5 times. Yes. So NBA finals twice.
Yeah.
He had one first round playoff exit, but he's been in the playoffs every year. Like, Kyrie came, things got toxic. Kyrie left. Al Horford left because things got toxic. And like, think about how toxic things had to be for Al Horford to be like, look, peace out. I got to go.
I'm going to Philly.
I'm going to Philadelphia. Like, oh my God. And through it all, the Celtics just kept winning. And this is a huge narrative, and this folds in Jaylen Brown, who we'll continue to talk about after the break. But these two guys, even as they're figuring themselves out and figuring each other out and figuring out how they win together, they still won. They still kept on getting to the playoffs and doing well in the playoffs. And instead of people sitting there going, wow, man, Kyrie came and left, Kemba came and left, and like, you guys still, in the wake of it all, are still going to the playoffs, still winning multiple series, still getting to the conference finals. Like, this is not supposed to happen. But instead, the narrative, because it's always championship or bust and rings culture, it's, well, you haven't won anything. Damn it, they have won more than any duo. Jayson Tatum has won more playoff games to this point in his career than almost anybody in NBA history. And suddenly, he's going to win a championship, and everybody's going to look back with the championship glow over it, and they're going to be like, wow, man, this dude's just a winner. And like, that's going to be like, I know I'm not saying that like you said it because it's true, but people who have been ragging on Tatum for a long time are going to look back when his career is over and he gets inducted to the Hall of Fame. Part of the speech is going to be one of the greatest winners in NBA history because all he's done to this point is won. And you know what's going to happen next year? They're going to win a ton of games and they might win another championship. And what's going to happen the year after that? They're probably going to win a whole lot of games and they might win another championship. Like, that's how good he's been. That's how impactful he's been. And for all of this time to be Jayson Tatum hasn't won anything. Like, finally, we get to say Tatum and Jaylen Brown, we'll talk about him in a second, are winners. But let's talk about Jaylen Brown when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find a qualified candidate for your small business. Now, I used to be a hiring manager. I've told you this before. I grew up in a small business. I know that looking for the right person is so tough. It's so tough. I was growing up, I didn't have things like LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It's not just another job board. LinkedIn has a big, huge, vast network of more than 1 billion with a B professionals. And that makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals that you can't find anywhere else because LinkedIn has a feature where people say, I'm open to work, even if they're not looking for work. That gives you candidates that you won't find anywhere else. And that's why 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows small businesses are wearing so many hats and you might not have time or resources to hire. They're making it easier. They're making the process easier. They've even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's show is also brought to you by our good friends at Crack Sauce. I tell you why they're our good friends, because they are celebrating the Celtics championship. They're founded by a hardcore Celtics fan. They are celebrating just as hard as you are. And they're out there working like crazy to make not just hot sauce, but flavorful sauces in small batches that are done at local farms. Farms in Concord, Drake, Carlisle. They've even bought fruit from these farms to turn into cider that they ferment and turn into vinegar. And that's how they make their stuff. They are so committed to local, craft, well-made, huge flavor products. I don't know how you can, if you like hot sauce at all, how you can avoid picking up one of these for yourself or for dad. Crack Sauce, CRAIC sauce.com, CRAIC sauce.com. Use the code LOCKEDON. You get 10% off. So get some for you, get some for dad, your brother, Father's Day, whatever. Go stock up. And if you go to cracksauce.com, maybe you can go and meet Brian, the founder of Crack Sauce, at one of his outings at, around Boston, around the New England area. So check it out. Go taste it for yourself. I'm telling you, once you taste it, you're going to love it. It's not just hot sauce. It's an ingredient. It's something that you can put on your food that makes it more flavorful. I love it. I use it all the time, and you should too. Crack Sauce, CRAIC sauce.com. Use the code Locked On for 10% off your order. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA. I'm hosting on Wednesdays with Jake Madison. So I'm part of the rotating crew. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get back to the conversation here. Talk about Jayson Tatum. Got to talk about Jaylen Brown too. And not just the narratives, Tom, about like, oh, he has no left. Feel like this season he's kind of busted this whole thing about he can't go left. He's gone left plenty.
He was very intentional about busting it. It was all like, hey, look at
it was just like, I feel like the whole season's been like for some reason the Celtic socials posted a video of him kind of like fumbling a ball with his left.
Yeah.
And ever since then, he was like, okay, watch this. And he just went left like crazy. The knock on Jaylen was that he was selfish and that he wasn't a distributor. And he's not the distributor that Jayson Tatum is or has become. But he's been, and especially in these finals, has been great in that way and has been making the right reads. And my favorite thing from game 3 might have been that Jaylen got that jump shot to stop the Mavs run, because it shows that you can go out and have 8 assists and move the ball and make the right play. But when it comes down to it, when you have the opportunity, as I've said a million times in this podcast, when the right guys make the right plays, the right guys get the right stats. And that's the right stat for him in that moment. Big clutch shot to hit to hold off the Mavs. The narrative on Jaylen as just a me guy, I'm glad that that's getting busted.
It's really cool. I think the other thing that's really cool about watching Jaylen is like so many guys come into the league just oozing potential, right? Like where it's just like, you get guys who are just like, they're built the right way. They got the right athleticism. And it's like, well, if they fix X, Y, and Z, they could be really good. And the thing is that it's hard to fix X, Y, and Z. And you can like if you can even do, most of the things right and never fix X, Y, and Z, you could do 80% of the work and get better and improve and still never achieve what you need because you did X and Y and not Z.
Not Z, yeah.
And Jaylen has done the entire alphabet. Like he's gotten so much better at so many different things. And it's like it's really impressive to watch. It's really cool to watch. It's cool to I liked the Jaylen Brown pick, right? That's like one of my big draft calling cards. And I'm like, hey, I kind of know what I'm looking at when it comes to prospects.
I got that right. I got that right.
I got that one. I looked at Jaylen. I saw Jaylen a few times in high school and was just like, I think this kid's really good. But even so, right? You can like, he had a lot of the same tools that a lot of guys have. I always thought it was kind of funny. I think it was last year, maybe the year before. I believe it was with Slam. He did an interview where he was kind of like, yeah, people are always like, oh, you worked on X, Y, and Z. But I've been a prodigy. I've been a prodigy my whole life. It's like you have. But the thing is that in basketball, there are a lot of sort of prodigies in that way who have all the stuff, and he just outworked a lot of them. He just kept getting better, and it's so blatant that it was work and that it wasn't just natural in a lot of ways. His jump shot, that's a thing that your jump shot doesn't just get better. You work on that. You become a 3-point shooter through work. You get all these like Tracy McGrady mid-range moves through work. That doesn't come naturally. That footwork doesn't come naturally. The improvements to his left hand. Yeah, that was real last year. Like he struggled a lot, and it's also real that he's a lot better this season. That comes from work. All this stuff just comes from work. And like, that's cool, man. Like I don't know. You want the special players, the people with that special potential to do that, because if they do, then they're going to be so special. And that's awesome, man.
The greatest compliment I can pay him, I've said this in the podcast before, but maybe people haven't heard it, was like a few years ago. I'm one of the people that he proved wrong. And I freely admit it. And it's part of me paying the compliment, because a few years ago, I'd say, oh, he's supposed to be this kind of player. And then he busted past that. I'm like, oh, wow, that's great. He outperformed my expectations. So now he's this kind of player. And I set the bar at what he had become. And then he worked and became a different kind of player. I'm like, I did it once and he busted through it. I'm like, okay, so boom. I made the classic mistake of, well, I know what I'm talking about. And I set the bar here and he busted through it. Credit for him, but I still know what I'm talking about. Now he has overachieved. And so now because he's overachieved, now this is the bar. And that's his ceiling. That's it. And then he did it again. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm done. I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. He continues to grow and I'm not setting the ceiling anymore. And I think that's maybe that has to be the greatest compliment I can give a guy like Jaylen, because it's a testament to his work that even a moron like me, like having said these things about Jaylen in the first 2-3 years of his career, it's like, oh, okay, you know what? Completely wrong. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this ride, because you know what's going to happen next year after this championship and after maybe winning a finals MVP?
Sure, looks like
probably going to get better. He's probably going to go work and do something. And so I don't even know what he's going to be next year. And people should be excited for what Jaylen Brown is going to be next year, because it's inevitable that he is going to improve. He's 27. He's at the peak of his athletic powers. This is like, oh my God, we're only just touching the surface of what Jaylen can be. So that's my best compliment for Jaylen. Let's wrap this up with the most obvious narrative that needs to be busted, or that I hope people have come around to busting. Joe Mazzulla is such a good coach. He is such a good coach. I tweeted out a video from Thinking Basketball, which is 10 minutes. It's on my Twitter at John_Karalis. It's 10 minutes of adjustments that the Celtics made in game 3. And you just see, oh, the Mavs have done this in the first half. Okay, a little bit of a struggle. Oh, we figured out what the Mavs are going to do. Third quarter, just done. Just. Oh, you want to roam the big? Okay, no problem. We're gonna do this, and this, and it's gonna be Jayson Tatum dunk. It's gonna be this open corner 3. It's gonna be this attack, and so on and so forth. And the Celtics got away from that and gave up the lead. And once they kind of got back to that stuff, they got back on track and won the game. But man, watching videos like that and seeing the game, and people, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on the game, but like when you listen to the people who are even smarter and you get even deeper into like, wow, man, the coaching adjustments that these guys have continued to make over the course of this season and the series and all of that stuff. This is a smart group. And I'll tell this story. I might have said this on the podcast before too, but before the finals started, we're at the practice facility and Joe Mazzulla wrapped up his media availability. He was talking about narratives and stuff. And as he was getting ready to walk in the door, NBA TV was on. They were talking about Celtics must stop the lob. And I'm walking next to Joe, and he stops and he points at the TV and he looks at me and he goes, "This is a good example. We're going to do this. We are going to take this away, but we're going to give up something else to do it. And I want people to understand what we're living with and what we're doing to take this away, because this is right. We're going to take this away, and this is how there's going to be something." And what he did was play Luka straight up. And what he was clearly saying was, Luka's going to average 30 in this series. We're going to want him to. And what I don't want is for people to be like, oh, they're getting smoked by Luka. You got to stop Luka. And because he knew that taking away the lobs and taking away the other outlets for Luka to pass, like that was the key to winning this series. And that I'm going to forever remember that moment, because he was like, no. Just watch what we're about to do, because it's going to be good, but something else is going to happen that people might perceive as bad. And he was hoping that people would understand what was happening. And thankfully, I think a lot of people do.
Well, it makes it a little bit easier when the guys who you put on Tatum, when you're like, or when you put on you put on Luka, actually defended him incredibly well, right, one-on-one as well. That makes a big difference as well. I mean, I thought, speaking of Jaylen Brown, right? I mean, I thought one of his quotes, right, that he's like last night, he's like, it's just been super organized. You know, we've walked through all the different types of scenarios. We've been like overly prepared and making sure that we know, you know, sometimes you got the coaches, the game plan, but they don't always let you know exactly what they're thinking. Like, they tell us everything, super transparent, and we trusted it. We trust it. I think that if there's something, like, Joe Mazzulla strikes me as the kind of guy who would be pretty honest with his players about like, you know, I think it seems like he kind of takes in information from all corners. And, you know, one of those corners that's really important to take information in from is, I mean, MMA, certainly, right? But like, also, of course, but also like your own players. Get your players' feedback, find out what they think, because they're the ones who are actually going to be executing it. And then I think, you know, one really good thing that a coach can do is then synthesize, a really good coach can then synthesize all that information that he's taken in about killer whales, MMA, you know, all the other stuff that we hear about, but then also what your players are saying and all the film you watch and all of that stuff. There's so much information that you have to just put out there, and he does that really, really well. I think, you know, I tweeted this yesterday, but I think one of the things that's or today, I guess, one of the things that's interesting to me is kind of like the parallel to young Eric Spoelstra, where he's had this like super team, you know, really high powered team that he was unexpectedly given, but he's this bright young coach who just has kind of been open to, you know, like open to like other people's opinions, experiences, and has just done such a good job of taking all of that and getting the team where it needs to be, pushing all the right buttons, getting everybody to buy in. I mean, really impressive work from a guy who's like a year older than me. So
I know, like I it's crazy. It's so funny.
I mean, we're all adults, right? It's like a talented adult can do things, but it's just like, man, like what an impressive young coach.
No, it's he is super impressive. And just the way he talks to guys, the way he listens to guys, all of that stuff. It's incredible. I have to figure out what the killer whale stuff is, because Sam Hauser said killer whales, and you know, I wanted to ask Joe about it. I didn't get an opportunity. Maybe I'll ask, but the media availability right before he wins a championship.
I think that's the time. Yeah,
I think that's the time to ask about.
I think he'll really take that well.
Yeah, he probably will. He actually probably be like, "Oh yeah, I'm excited to talk about this." He's such a unique guy, man, and yeah, I think all of this, like we talked about it the other day, the timing of everything, the fact that Mazzulla got these guys to buy in, and everybody sacrificed, and it's working. What an absolute perfect scenario for him. Like, these guys went out and did it. They all bought in, and it wasn't like the Milwaukee Bucks with Adrian Griffin be like, okay, yeah, no, we'll buy in, and then they kind of not, and like not really. I don't know what the hell happened there, but like that, whatever that was, it didn't happen in Boston. Like, they just said, you know, we'll do everything you say, and Mazzulla and the coaching staff, because of all that stuff you're talking about, their openness, their desire to like take in the information and give the information, and actually have open lines of communication. That, I think the psychology of Joe Mazzulla is where it needs to be. He's been called a sicko. He's been called a genius. He's been called crazy. But I think all of it's because he just doesn't think of things in terms of just like, I don't know, like Stan Van Gundy would think of things. Like, it's not very old school basketball. Sorry, Stan, I didn't mean to have you catch a stray there, but like old school basketball, this is what we're talking about. We're not, who gives a damn about killer whales? You know, like, no, he finds something, he sees something in the world. And it's like, oh yeah, I see a parallel there. I can see how that applies to what we're trying to do. Like, this is, it all makes sense. He takes these natural occurrences. And it's like, no, there's no difference between what's happening here and what we're trying to do. It's just, we're playing basketball. It's just applied a different way. I've been on this podcast all year long being like, no, Joe is good. Joe really knows what he's talking about, and the mentality and all of that stuff. I completely get what he's doing. I completely understand how his brain works. My brain works the same stupid way sometimes. In terms, like, I'm very willing to listen to like the killer whale thing, because I think I might actually learn something from the killer whales. I'm actually like, I want to learn. I want to know what he's talking about there. All of this is to say,
well, I mean, what's fascinating, real quick, he's just using metaphors, right? Like, it's very, like, really effectively. Dude would probably be a really good writer if he ever wanted to be.
Probably. I don't know, man. This is like, if we're on the verge of a championship, and I kind of don't know what to say until they win a championship. They're up 3-0, and it's like the time for analysis is kind of done. Like, there's no more breaking down. The Celtics have broken it down. They just got to go and play 48 more minutes and do the same thing, because Dallas has nothing. So it's like, I don't know. Celebrate it, I guess. It's day 2 of celebration, and
yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I know we're like 41 minutes into the podcast, but I don't know if I agree that it's like celebration time. I think you're right, though. I think it's like analysis time. All right, finish it. Got to go finish the job.
Well, yes, you got to go finish it. I guess, you know, it'd be very appropriate for the Celtics to be like, hey, we have this big lead. Watch us almost blow it and have to like win this in 7. Like,
yeah, no. They could blow one game, so that my Celtics in 5 prediction that I wasn't brave enough to say on the pod, but I texted to a bunch of people so I could like prove it with screen caps later. They could blow one game for me. That'd be all right.
Yeah. Win it at home. That'd be fun. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that'll wrap up the podcast. I kind of don't know what to say. This for the first time ever. I'm like, I don't know what to say. These guys are like, I'm happy for these guys. I really am happy for these guys. And I'm happy, like, a lot of this stuff, a lot of people who said some really nasty things about these guys get to eat a lot of crow. And that's what I'm happiest about. There are a lot of talking heads that are just like, their narratives are busted. And now you got to come up with something else. Yeah. So, all right. I guess with that, I'm just going to wrap it up. It's a very long podcast for us, but Tom, thank you very much as always.
Appreciate you, man.
And I appreciate all of you, the listeners, the watchers, here 7 days a week during the finals. But the finals might be over on Friday. So one more podcast. Am I going to be celebrating the Celtics? Like, just done. Celtics are done. They're champions. Am I going to be celebrating from the American Airlines Arena? Do I get to go back to the TD Garden and watch another basketball game there? I don't know, but make sure that you're subscribed. So wherever the ride takes us, you can find out. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate you watching and subscribing. And then I would appreciate you sharing the podcast and telling everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.